My name is Joe Kline. I was born on July 8, 1949 in Washington, D.C. and lived out my childhood in Gilroy, California. When the U.S. was first becoming involved in the Vietnam War, I was attending St. Mary's School in Gilroy. But when the war really got heated in 1966 and 1967, I was attending high school at Gilroy High. My view on U.S. involvement in the war was generally positive. I felt at the time, and I still do, that the United States involvement in the war was appropriate. At the start of the war, the United States was becoming involved for the right reasons. Most people forget, or are not taught, that the U.S. public was also heavily behind our efforts in the early days of the war. But towards the end, the war began to get frustrating. The United States seemed less interested in winning the war as it was in leaving Vietnam. I and most of my comrades felt that we were fighting with one arm tied behind our backs. The rules of engagement were ridiculous. The war was being micromanaged from Washington. My view on the war was very, very different from the views that many other Americans had, due in large part to the way the media portrayed the war. American citizens were strongly against it, especially in the later years. My uncles and my father both served in World War II, so I had a very strong sense of service and history. This interest in history and my appreciation for the duty of serving the country was the main reason I joined the Army. I was very eager to serve in the military and do my duty. I was 20 years old at the time, had 2 years of college, but was anxious to be involved in the biggest adventure, as I saw it, of our generation. After training, I volunteered to be a helicopter crew chief and door gunner from 1970 to 1971 in the 101st Airborne Division. Primarily, I was responsible for the mechanical upkeep of my helicopter and was a door gunner when in flight. I was stationed in an area called Northern I Corps. It was an area that saw lots of action, and I went on frequent combat assault missions and resupply missions throughout my service in Vietnam. Despite the countless flights I took on numerous missions, the most memorable and life-altering moments were during an operation called Lam Son 719. This operation lasted several months and began in February of 1971, when I only had about a month of service left. The operation involved flying South Vietnamese troops into Laos, which was adjacent to Vietnam, to interdict the Ho Chi Minh Trail. At that time, it was the largest and costliest air-mobile operation in history. Almost 700 U.S. helicopters were damaged and over 100 were destroyed. It was a huge operation involving many troops and aircraft. I had a sense that it was a historic event at the time. For the first time in my life, I felt that I was involved in something much larger than myself. Being a part of that operation put my entire life into perspective. I had finally realized that there were things in life that were much larger than myself. I am now working for the City of Gilroy in the City Hall as Public Information Officer, but that is only part of what I do. As a secondary career, I am a military aviation artist. I run this business out of my home in Gilroy. Initially, I painted World War II and Vietnam scenes, but recently I've been doing lots of projects with units in Iraq. Looking back on my service in the Army during the Vietnam War, I am positive that I would do it all over again. I did the right thing by serving my country in the major war of my generation. I have no regret for any of my actions. On the contrary, I am extremely proud of my service and maintain friends from those days long ago to this day. I strongly believe that I made the proper and correct choice.